Welcome to the FCS, a part of FCS Fans Nation, where we go down all the jackrabbit holes, are loaded with hotter takes in the inferno, and have a bigger crown than Duke Dog himself. The show you didn't want, you definitely didn't need, but here you are. Let's get into this. What is going on, FCS Fans Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the FCS or the Football Chris Show. Getting a lot of traction, so I don't do this often, but if you could, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We got like 9,000 members on our Facebook page. So I'm just thinking, like, let's get 9,000 on the YouTube page as well. We got a lot of cool stuff coming from you, from not just me, coming forward. And today, I'm joined by Ben Schleiger, who's a writer for the College Sports Journal. Ben, how the heck are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you, Chris?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful. We're recording this on a Saturday. Getting ready. We're 14 days from week 0. Getting excited. Like, the season is around the corner. So, you know, you and I we pull for some less popular teams. Let's put it that way. Some teams that maybe they've been down a little bit recently. And being the natural underdog that I am, I figured let's do an underdog / Dark Hors / whatever you want to call it, right? We're going to do an episode telling you guys out there, the FCS Fans Nation, who Ben and I think as perennial underdogs, who this year's underdogs are, that maybe are getting slept on a little bit and can make a run. So kind of our criteria we went with. Maybe, you know, we'll bend it to our whim if we need it to. But basically, we took teams outside of the top 20 or so. Could make a deep playoff run. Maybe just making the playoffs is kind of still what we were looking for here. But basically, like a team you might be sleeping on. Maybe didn't get the love in the preseason poll. But by the end of the year, we could be going like, how did you miss them? You know, like 2019 Sac State, 2020 VMI. Those are what we're trying to give you guys. We're going to give you 3 apiece. Figure between the 6, one of them's got to hit, right?
It's got to.
It's got
odds are in our favor.
Exactly. So at one point we can clip this up come January and be like, Ben and Chris are geniuses. They called Team A back in August. So with that being the guest, I want to give you the first pick here. Who is your number 1 underdog going into this season?
Okay, so I'm going to stay in conference for me since, you know, I'm a Big Sky guy. No, not going to choose the lovely Bears. I love them. We're actually going to go UC Davis on this one.
It wasn't my lovely Vandals either, huh?
You know, I love the roster. I don't love your schedule. It's a rough one. So for UC Davis, 2020, they got as many games as they could. 3-2. You know, they had a 5-point loss to Weber and a 10-point loss to Eastern Washington. Not too bad of a spring for them. 2019, you know, they had some good games in there as well. They had close losses to Cal, North Dakota State, and UND. You know, their other losses were ranked number 4 Weber, number 10 Montana State. You know, they got a really good program out there with Dan Hawkins. He used to be over here at CU. Dude's a genius. Even if I don't like he was beating up on all of our in-state competition. You know, he's doing a lot of good things for Davis out there, and I think he's thriving better than he ever did in Boulder. He's got that stud running back, Ulonzo Gillum. In 2019, he had 1,298 yards and 11 touchdowns. Like, it's just hard to bet against that. I know they've been kind of one of those roller coaster teams. They've been performing above where they should be, below where they should be. But UC Davis, if they're going to make a play, I think this year is a good play for them to make. With Weber State having a little bit tougher out-of-state conference schedule with JMU, I feel like that's gonna bite them in the butt right there. Like, with that and Montana coming back into the fray, Eastern, you know, loading up for Barrier to have his outstanding season before he probably goes to the NFL. Like, this is UC Davis's time to sneak in and take what they think they deserve, even though the rest of the conference is probably counting them out.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it. Like, people forget that there was a bunch of uproar about the 4 Missouri Valley teams getting the bid there in the spring. That 4th spot probably goes to UC Davis if they don't opt out of the postseason. Like, right. I would have pegged it there. I mean, I know maybe not, right? Could be completely wrong. But that's how I was kind of looking at it is, okay, if UC Davis did play, that slot was going to the Aggies down there in Davis, California. I mean, you nailed it. You look at their schedule, open at Tulsa. Doesn't matter. It's FBS. Could win. Probably not. San Diego used to be a little bit tougher than they've been recently. Doors kind of open there. Dixie State should be a win. They do go to Weber. But other than that, I mean, every game is basically winnable. They get the Eagles at home. That one's going to be tough. But, I mean, that's end of the year. Hopefully you got everything clicking. And then you end it in the Causeway Classic with a team that I think is going to be a little bit down. So then you have kind of that Sac State. All right, well, they beat somebody that had a name recognition to them there in the Causeway Classic. And I agree with you. This could be one of those years. This could be one of those teams where the Big Sky usually has a shared title. This could be that team that shares that title that really is getting, picked by most people around 4, 5, or 6 in their polls. I think that was a really good UC Davis pick. And I love what you said. A lot of people forget. They remember Dan Hawkins for doing some daddy ball at UC Boulder.
Yeah.
They don't remember conveniently building Boise State to what it became. He left the first year Chris Peterson took basically Dan Hawkins' team to the Fiesta Bowl. So obviously not downplaying Chris Peterson as coach either, but Dan Hawkins got that Boise State is Dan Hawkins' build, and Chris Peterson just elevated it. They were already flirting on the door there. Chris Peterson just kicked it down. So, you got to remember Dan Hawkins can build a program, and that looks to be what he's doing down in Davis. Any kind of closing points on your Aggies?
Actually, I went through the whole Big Sky schedule, and you can find it on College Sports Journal. We did a main preview for the Big Sky. We'll do team previews coming out in the next week or two.
Link will be below.
I actually had them finishing number 4 in the conference at 8-3, and in conference 6-2. With actually, I think they can take Weber and surprise them at the end of the season. So I feel like that Montana, Easter, and Weber, they're all kind of going to tie up, and UC Davis is going to be perfect for at-large bid.
Yeah, I mean, at Weber, but at Idaho State, at Cal Poly, at Northern Arizona. If you had to pick places you want to be on the road, I know NAU, Dome, Elevation, whatever, it is a freaky place to play, I guess. But, maybe NAU's a surprise team this year, but, otherwise they should literally win all the road games. They got a really easy road schedule other than Weber, which –
right.
Oh, well, I mean, once again, you'll notice, I think there'll be a running throughout this whole episode of, we'll just kind of call it, the prove it game. They're obviously going to have to win one of these games for our prediction to be right. And that Weber game or the Eastern Washington game is kind of that game, right? Well, yeah, obviously people aren't predicting them to win it, right? And so if we're saying if they get one of those, that's where this hits. If they beat Weber in Ogden, this UC Davis pick looks awesome. And they got close, in the spring. And as we move into my next pick, you'll see that run through too, that it comes down to, yes, they might still not be favored because that's what our minds are thinking. That's the whole underdog dark horse. They win a couple of these, the whole narrative changes, and that's how we get your 2019 Sac States. So I'll go with my number 1 underdog. I mean, it's no surprise here, so I guess I'll just get it out of the way. Anyone that's caught this episode or seen my top 25, I'm high on Stephen F. Austin. I know it was a weird season. They played a lot of D2 teams, but I'm just saying, I'm an eye test guy. When you watched the Lumberjacks, they just looked like something was about to click, right? It looked like they were churning. You look at their 2020 season, they lose by 10 to UTEP. That's an FBS side, it's CUSA team. They lose by 14 to UTSA, also a CUSA team. They also lose to SMU and Memphis, so AAC teams. So, they go 0-4, but against, it wasn't, the MAC, right? It's decent teams in the CUSA and then good teams in the AAC. So I'm not going to hold that against them. They smoked all their D2 competition. No reason to really get into that. Just it doesn't really matter about FBS being close is really cool. But blowing out, we all fell for that with Nichols last year when they were blowing out some bad teams. We had them in the top 10 and then they fell apart. So smoked some D2 teams, but then they went 2-0 against the FCS, including shutting out Eastern Kentucky, which some people might be a reminder when they're seeing the UCA Bears in some people's polls between like 9 and 16, depending on where, right? EKU beat the Bears last year. I mean, they went 1-on-1, they played twice, but so this is a team in Stephen F. Austin that beat a team that beat, translated properties don't really count in sports, but for the sake of the argument, I'm going to use it anyways. They beat a team who beat a possible top 10 team. Like, I think that shows that, you couldn't take a lot away from their schedule from being FBS and a lot of D2, but the games they played in the FCS weren't bad. So I think you look at their 2020 season and you go like they were building the right pieces. You look at their 2021, they should be 3-1 until they get to the Battle of Piney Wood against Sam Houston. Then this is where I say like they're gonna have to win one for it to come around, right? Right after the rivalry game against Sam Houston, they've got Jacksonville State. Like, not a tough game, a winnable game though. Like, some people are down on the Gamecocks this year. Some people are high on them. They're that team that always seems like sometimes struggle. They play down or they play to their competition in the Gamecocks. If they play down to what they think Stephen F. Austin's supposed to be this year, I think they could sneak up and get the Gamecocks. And then you look, they closed the year against UCA. So, I mean, that one's going to be tough. But like we said, they beat EKU last year, who beat them, and they play EKU the week before that. They do have to go to the Stripes down in Conway, so it could be difficult. But once again, that's kind of that prove-it game. They're going to have to get a win here against the rivalry game against Sam Houston at JSU or at Central Arkansas. I'm not saying it's easy having those games at a neutral site in a way, but for them to pull this off, they're going to have to win one. And I'm looking at JSU and Central Arkansas and being like, okay, they win that 10-1, maybe 9-2 this season. Like, I would say that would shock some people that if Stephen F. Austin finishes the year possibly 9-2.
I could see that. I mean, looking at their schedule, like, obviously Texas Tech, that's going to be a nice little money game for them. Sam Houston, if they reload just the same, their roster depth is really good right now. I don't see that being a problem. Jacksonville State, I see where you could have that as a toss-up game, especially like if they don't stay healthy at quarterback. They do have suitable backups, but it really messed them up having a different rhythm there. Central Arkansas, again, like that's going to have to be a prove-it game, but that's a prove-it game where it's 60-40. Like, they have Dixie State, East ACU, Eastern Kentucky. If they get on a roll, go 3-0 through that stretch, they don't have any excuse to keep on rolling at 5-0 through the back half of their schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
And looking at the D2, competition, there was some sketchy ones like Western Colorado. The Austin Eckler used to be there, so it used to be kind of a tough program. That was maybe a little bit of a cupcake win. But Angelo State and West Texas A&M, those ones were actually kind of in consideration early on in the WAC when they were looking at like who can we bring in until the whole Southland slide where they were able to just steal so much more than they deserved. Those schools were actually top contenders from some of the stuff that I heard. So those are good wins as well, even though they're D2. I mean, Tarleton State, they were D2. Now they're jumping up to us. They got some wins they shouldn't have got. So they're gonna have to wash their backs. But that back half of the schedule, it screams playoffs if they can scream it back.
Right. They have that prove it stretch, right? That's where like we will know about this team after October 9th, basically. Like once they get out of Sam Houston and JSU, if they can go 1-on-1 on those, they're looking real pretty. I don't think they go 2-0.
No.
Like that would, if they go 2-0, this next comment doesn't matter, I guess. At that point, they'd be just getting in their own way. But yeah, you get 1-on-1 against there. Let's say, I don't think they beat Sam Houston, so let's say they beat JSU. Then they get the bye week to kind of collect themselves. And then, like you said, it's just a boom 5-game stretch of like decent games. Dixie State, sure, they're probably not going to get enough respect for playing them. Dixie State has a super hard schedule. So like they're going to look really bad on paper when you're looking at the record. They play just about every good team. But Abilene Christian should be considered a decent quality win. EKU, decent quality win. UCA Bears, supposed to be good this year. You can win that one, and then you close out Lamar and just don't slip up. If you can win those three, before Conway, winning Conway and Lamar. I mean, you're flirting with, a really good playoff seed, pending your losses to only Sam Houston and Texas Tech. I mean, at that point, you're looking possibly seeded, probably not, but like, I don't know. I just look at that and I go, their schedule is set up to where they have just enough prove it games. And the way you got your kind of your clump right there. If they lose to Sam Houston and JSU, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But if they win those last 5 games, they're in the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even if they do stumble, they go 0-2 on those marquee games for us in the FCS. If they can go 5-0, there's a chance.
Yep.
Teams slip in. There could be another UC Davis situation where like they get the invite and they opt out. So anything can happen if they write their own destiny. It's up to them.
Yep. All right, who you got next for us?
All right, next I'm gonna save the juicy one for last. But next, this one's a little bit more of a fringe pick. I don't believe in them 100%, but I don't think they got enough respect last season or in the preseason polls this year. I'm going Eastern Tennessee State, or ETSU. So going with them, they were 4-2 in their 2020 season. They beat a Samford for a team that everybody hyped up, said, okay, Samford's going to be good this year. I know that it didn't shake out so hot in their first game. And then they also beat number 10 VMI. Everybody's very high on VMI still, thinking they're going to make a run for it, having them, within the top 15 in some polls. They lost to Furman, but Furman was ranked number 15 at the time, and they only lost by 4 points. They also had a loss to Mercer receiving votes at that time, so that was still a good matchup. But we got to remember, they had a down 2019, only had 3 or 4 wins there. But in 2018, they were 8-4. They went 6-2 in their conference. This team, I'm not as familiar with their roster, but this team, at least offensively and defensively on stats, they were scrappy. Like just alone in the 2020 season, they had 5 interceptions on defense. That's not easy to pull off. If you're going to be a good team, you got to create those opportunities. You got to be able to create those turnovers. So I think they're scrappy enough that if they shake out well enough, they could surprise somebody.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think you nailed it. Like they had kind of that down year in 2019 that everybody forgot about, but that's coming off like a little bit of building of momentum that was going on there. I mean, they had a pretty successful 2018 campaign for their, standards, down 2019, and then 2020, it kind of looks like it starts to click back. Obviously, weird season, pandemic. They don't get to play Chattanooga, who was kind of running the SoCon at the time. Lose to Furman, who apparently is a perennial going to be good someday team by most pundits out there. It's totally possible because the SoCon is so tough, right? Like the teams are pretty all evenly matched most of the time, that it is kind of hard to like get ahead in that race. But if you can build a little bit of that momentum, you're going to get there. And I think you're right when you're looking at the Bucks here. Like there's not a at Samford, Wofford's down. I mean, I'm high on Mercer, but like I guess at Mox on the 16th of October and at Paladins on the 23rd, kind of the games. I mean,
yeah, those might be their prove it games right there, and they have VMI at home. I mean, if they can beat VMI when they were a top 10 team, and they have them at home this year, that could be another one of those prove it games where coming off a bye week, they get 2 weeks of film, they get to just prepare out the yin yang for these guys, and if they take that, they should be able to take Western Carolina, and then Mercer, you're closing out your last senior game at home November 20th against them. I don't know. I feel like with the SoCon being kind of a roll the dice type conference, anybody can win it. And just a few years ago, we were talking about, are they going to be, part of the Big Four? Are they going to make it, worthy of being a conference like that? And they kind of fought each other within it, so everybody brought themselves down. But it's a competitive league, and they don't have. To me, it's not that tough of a schedule. You got your money game, you got a D2 game, and then you go straight into it. If they can go 3-1 in those first weeks and then really dig in at home, if they get their home games and they take Western Carolina and either the Chattanooga or the Furman game, I feel like they could get into the playoffs just fine.
I think you nailed it. You look at that. If let's say they do lose to Chattanooga, just because Chattanooga right now is the favorite, beat Paladins the next week, you get that bye week, like you said, the prep up for homecoming against VMI. Like, man, that's some momentum. You could end the year on a 4-game winning streak against 2 quality opponents in Furman and VMI. That Chattanooga loss doesn't look that bad, especially because Chattanooga's expected to take care of business. Their trip is just like, I don't know what to expect from Sanford and Wofford. They're both teams I thought about putting as dark horses, and you do kind of start conference play with them. But I think they should beat them. I like this pick. I say it's very bold going to the SoCon for a dark horse because like it is it's a difficult league to predict. But I think the Bucks have got all the makings for this.
Yeah, I mean that's where it's at. It's hard to predict who's going to be it. Like Chattanooga is supposed to be at the top, but we've heard that Furman is supposed to be a national title competitor for how many years from Hero Sports? Like I love the guys at Hero Sports, but like Furman, like some years they're hot, some years they're cold. Like in a hot and cold league, if you're going to steal the ship, you got to steal it at some point.
Fact. Yeah, and they've kind of been building to it. Cool. Well, I'm ready for my next pick if you're ready for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right. This one, I feel like it's kind of cheating. I feel like this isn't really that big of a surprise, but then like you'll look at the rankings, and it is. I'm going with McNeese. I know like traditionally kind of more of a blue blood program. They've got more conference titles than like every other Southland team combined that's left in the Southland. But 2020, a little weird. Obviously, for everybody, it was a little weird, right? But they had to deal with a hurricane that basically destroyed most of their community. I think they're still recovering from it. I don't think they're fully back, but, at least return to a bit more of a state of normalcy. You got that. And then you kind of look at how they closed out the year last year. I mean, we'll go through their 2020 schedule real quick. They beat Tarleton State and then play really bad, lose to Incarnate Word, lose to Sela by 5, and then lose to Lamar in overtime. Yikes, not a stellar stretch there. But then they beat the Northwest State Demons, who are not very good, 21-7. They beat Nichols, 43-31. And then they lose to Sam Houston on the road, 27-13. So kind of a close game, but the more telling story there is Cody Orgeron, quarterback, Ed Orgeron's son, to close out the year was completing 70% of his passes in those last 3 games, so where they went 2-1, 7 TDs, no picks. And then you have a close loss to the eventual FCS national champion. Not close, but, two possession game on the road. I just think it was building in the right direction for McNeese. I think you could kind of see as they maybe got settled in and kind of were able to rebound as a community from the hurricane, things started to come together for McNeese. And in my opinion, it only gets better here going into 2021. Very fun schedule if you're a McNeese fan. You open on September 11th. Again, it will not open. You'll play West Florida at home. But then you go to Baton Rouge. You play Ed Orgeron and the Tigers. I mean, as a neutral here, like father versus son here, like you got it. It's a Bears fan. Can you imagine if Ed McCaffrey and Dylan went and played Luke, right? Like it would it'd be fun, right?
Fire.
Yeah, this is that game basically, a little reversed, right? It'd be more like if Ed was at Colorado, but it'll be fun to see like McNeese, who's kind of always in the shadow of LSU, get a shot at the Tigers with son leading the helm against dad as the OC, or at the head coach over at LSU. So that just on its own is fun and worth watching this McNeese team for. But then, you get into it. Other than LSU, schedule pairs up really, really nice for McNeese to make a run. They get Nichols at home. They get Northwestern, who I kind of said was kind of bad, twice. They do have to play Sela twice, or sorry, SLU. My apologies, Sela fans. But once again, that's kind of that prove it game, right? You have to play in Hammond, and you get one at Lake Charles. Like, just win one. You win one, I think you're set up extremely nicely. You look at just what this team has been able to build. Obviously, Cody Orgeron, has improved every single season he's played in completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio. Everything gets better. He's going to be he's a graduate. He actually graduated in the spring. So he's poised to really just have a standout season. Not to mention, they bring back an All-American in Isaiah Chambers, and then also a really good player in Mason Kinsley coming off the ends. What's left of the Southland, basically saying Sam Houston's not there anymore. I don't think the current Southland offensive lines are going to be able to handle those two. So not only do you have Ed just airing the ball out, Cody airing the ball out on the offensive side, they got two dudes that can absolutely get after the ball. So I think you look at that. I don't think the holdovers can do it. I don't think Sela's going to be able to really, I mean, they'll obviously put up the best fight. Then you go into, they bring in a transfer from Tulane at running back, Stephen Huderson, and then they also get a Louisiana Tech home of Terry Bradshaw, wide receiver transfer, CJ Powell, to kind of emerge, hopefully, if they can emerge, that's how this will happen, as kind of the take off the do everythingness of Ogeron. Which also is going to help them free up all conference wide receiver Josh Matthews. So I think everything is just like really coming together. They're making a real good dish, like we're chef cooking right now. I think this could be a 5-course meal for McNeese this year. I think they could see a little bit of that return to dominance. I think they could maybe win the Southland this year and surprise people, because Southeastern Louisiana, if they split that series, Southeastern Louisiana, I think is a little bit tougher of an actual schedule. Could maybe slip one of their games. It benefits getting Northwestern State twice. Very much so. And Incarnate Word. So I like McNeese this year.
Well, and I think there's also two other gifts on their schedule that might not have come up. With Southern on there, Southern is a scrappy SWAC team that, they, with everybody going over to the SWAC now, kind of abandoning the MEAC, it's going to be a free-for-all in the SWAC. You got Alabama A&M, you got Florida A&M bolstering for who's going to take over that, who's going to be the face of the conference. And Southern, while they're still a good team, like they have much bigger problems on their schedule other than McNeese. So they might be caught looking their way on that one. The other gift they have.
And weird, because it's also in Baton Rouge. So, like, does McNeese even go home? Did they just stay the weekend in Baton Rouge, right? Maybe that's distracting. Maybe you don't want to do that, but.
Certainly. The other thing on there is, our FCS stud who left for greener pastures, Bailey Zapp. He's not at Houston Baptist anymore. So they go into Houston, and it's not going to be, as much of a dogfight. They're going in there with whoever they have at quarterback, and you just went from someone who was just outstanding, even ESPN was picking him up, to who's next.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that game becomes a hell of a lot more winnable.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can, those last 3 games, Nichols gives you kind of that we beat Nichols, like kind of a name brand team. You should roll right through Houston Baptist and Northwestern State. Like, you should end the year 2-0, 3-0. Yet before that, you are in Hammond, Louisiana. So, like, that one's going to be difficult. But if you put it all together, I mean, leading up to that, you get Incarnate Word at home, and you're at Northwestern State off of a bye week after playing Southeastern Louisiana. So I just look at the schedule and go, like, I don't think they beat Sela twice, but I think they get them once. And if they get them once, maybe Nichols, but I don't see them slipping up to any other FCS teams. And then honestly, LSU is pretty bad right now. Like, I don't think they'll win that game, but
well, and coach keeps on saying he's going to go hard on his kid. He's going to, throw everything he's got against him. It's still his kid. Like, he's not going to be able to throw 100% at him. No matter what he tells the media, he's going to be like, oh, wow, he's doing pretty good. He might get a little bit distracted. I don't know if it's a win, but I think that could be a lot closer than anybody else predicts.
Yeah, like, I can't wait to see the spread on that game. I will probably take McNeese. Like, I think that game is closer than exactly what the big heads in Vegas out in the desert think. But, yeah, you kind of touched on Southern. I'm done with McNeese. Is there another direction you'd like to go?
So, talking about HBCUs, there's a lot of talent out there. I think the SWAC is just going to be amazing. But let's talk about somebody who won the Celebration Bowl many times and is dipping out. North Carolina A&T. Now I know this might be a little controversial. Some people are going to be like, "Hey, that's not a dark horse." Other people are like, "Well, of course it's a dark horse. They're coming from the Celebration Bowl. They're finally trying to come back to the playoffs and not get blanked by Richmond." They're coming out. So the spring they opted out, but in 2019 they're pretty fire. They had a 9-3 record, 6-2 in their conference. They beat Elon. They had a good showing at Duke, but got blown out. They also beat a scrappy South Carolina State team. And their losses were a really bad one to Morgan State. It's just kind of like a freak week where they got out schemed. The other loss was an overtime controversial win against Florida A&M. There was holding on that last call, but whatever. They got the touchdown. It's fine. And it really doesn't matter because everybody's gonna have to be looking out for Jermaine Martin. This dude is absolutely incredible. 2019, he had 1,446 yards on the ground and 23 touchdowns. Like, if there's somebody to watch out for, this dude is insane. Like, he's definitely gearing up to try to go to the NFL. And before he goes, he's just going to try to ball out. So looking at the schedule here, it's going to be a tough one. They're going to have to earn it. And, they have to go to Kennesaw State. Everybody says Kennesaw State's they're down. That amazing class is finally grown up and graduated out since it's their 5th year, but they're still a tough team. They're still getting ranked. They got to play a money game at Duke. They can see if they can do any better on a measuring stick from there. But you go and you're looking through it, and it's all people that they could beat or have beat before, except for Monmouth. Monmouth, it's literally on the schedule here. I love it. It says greatest homecoming on earth, and they have Monmouth. If that game does not get bumped up from ESPN Plus, it'll be a shame to everyone in the country because I feel like Monmouth definitely has the edge going into it, and I don't see NCAA coming into the conference and taking it by storm, getting the title first year, but this is going to be a huge dogfight on October 30th. Like, I don't know what I'm doing on that Saturday, but I might have to have my phone going if I'm at a game. Like, that's going to be pretty exciting right there. You're looking at other games they have on their schedule. I got South Carolina State. That's always a good game, but they usually win that one. Gardner-Webb, they were going to be good. With the quarterback situation right now, who knows? And then they have other games on there like UNA. They should be able to go through them. They're still new enough, getting their bearings in the FCS. Robert Morris, NCCU. I don't know. Looking at the schedule, it looks like I don't think they're going to struggle that much. They're just definitely going to struggle more than they did in the MEAC. But I got to say, if they're going to get Jermaine Martin to the NFL, he's got a lot of good choices. He's got a lot of good games to show out in. And if they show out at the Kennesaw game and take that homecoming game, or at least one of them, I don't think they can get both personally. But if they get one of those, that's going to be a little marquee win on their schedule. Committee's going to have to think about that.
Yep. No, I mean, you nailed it. Like, once again, this also, I went with McNeese, you went with NCAA&T, kind of our cheater picks. But you're right, McNeese, not ranked. NCAA&T, just barely ranked in the stats poll. I believe they came in at 25. So, again, people are not getting a lot of hope. And I actually disagree with you a little bit on it. I actually am surprised they're not getting more love to win the conference. I believe Charleston Southern, who was picked 4th, actually got a first-place pick. And nobody picked NCAA&T. All the other picks went to Kennesaw or Monmouth. I agree. Kennesaw, I think, is kind of in a rebuilding phase, like a little hybrid of both. But they're not down in the dumps. I just think they're definitely beatable. I mean, I just look. NCAA&T obliterated most of their schedule in 2019. They went 11-2 against the FCS. You covered it. Controversial game against Florida A&M. Okay, whatever, they lost. Move past it. Then they barely lose at Morgan State, which is just kind of like a wacky it happens. You kind of got caught between a rival and SC State and just slept it. And I don't think this team's going to do that anymore because they're not in as sleepable of a conference like you kind of brought up. And then you look at it, I mean, otherwise they beat NC Central 54-0. They beat Howard 64-6. They beat Norfolk State 58-19, Delaware State 37-0. They won the Celebration Bowl, the basically Black National Championship by 20 points. Like, they are really, really good at football. And I think maybe we're sleeping on them a bit because they didn't play in 2020. People kind of forgot. And I mean, you nailed it. You just kind of like look at their schedule. Furman's going to come across as a good game early because people are always high on Furman. You get that. Duke, I mean, I don't expect them to beat the Blue Devils, but then NC Central, we just mentioned, they smoked them by like 60 points. Robert Morris could be better, but they're probably going to beat Robert Morris. UNA, loose footing. Kennesaw at Kennesaw, going to be hard, but it's not as hard as it's been in recent history. Should smoke Hampton. Monmouth, the greatest homecoming of all time. Like you said, that is going to be a game to watch for sure. Then at Charleston Southern, at SC State, who they've beaten, and Gardner-Webb, and I think they could beat Monmouth. I think they could maybe go undefeated and win the Big South year one. It's there. It hinges on Monmouth or Kennesaw getting a little bit better, a little bit ahead of schedule. If Kennesaw maybe takes a larger step forward than I think most people think they're going into this year, it could still be Kennesaw to retake the Big South. But I like NCAA at home on homecoming against Monmouth. Like, you want that energy. Possibly if they roll through the rest of that schedule, having only one loss to Duke, man, that place is going to be electric. Mm. And I just think it's just set up for NCAA to have success this year. The Prove It games are basically Furman, Kennesaw, and Monmouth. They all are spaced out. Two of them are on the road, but one of them's early. Kennesaw is it's a Prove It game, but it's not as much so. It just will look like a Prove It game when you put the check next to the win. Mm-hmm. And then Monmouth, you get that game at home late in the year with hopefully just a metric crap ton of momentum. I love it. I mean, I love it. I think NCAA was actually, you and I picked 6 for everybody listening to make sure that we each could have 3. NCAA is the team we both had. That's how much we both think NCAA has an opportunity this year. Is we each picked 6 Dark Horse underdog teams, and we still landed on NCAA as one of our tops. But you got
how sweet it is for them to have their toughest game outside of the money game, their toughest game of the whole season against the champs. At home, homecoming,
late in the year.
Even if they don't win, it's going to be the most exciting game on their schedule by far.
Yep. Good time to be an Aggies fan right now. All right. Well, I'm ready to round out here with my last pick. And I'm kind of keeping it similar to yours, a little different, but a team that's HBCU, but's made the move towards a playoff conference. This is why we're not including the MEAC, SWAC, and IVs, is because we are focused on a measurable statistic of could make the playoffs. One of those such teams, Tennessee State. Wild. I know, we kind of talked about it with your Bears. You got a former NFL guy in there, Eddie George, for those of you who aren't aware, has taken the job. Can an NFL guy, and with less coaching experience than a guy like Ed McCaffrey, really take a program to elite heights year one? I guess we'll see. But I think you just look at this. Eddie George's head ball coach just put some energy in there, right? They play in Nissan Stadium, so it's going to be – they're going to draw people because people in Tennessee, and especially Nashville, love Eddie George, right? Your neutrals are going to start coming out and supporting this team. It was a great hire in that terms, kind of like Northern Colorado, how people in the Denver area love Ed McCaffrey. Same playbook, basically. But he also gets Hugh Jackson, former Browns, Raiders, everything like that, to be his offensive coordinator. And love him or hate him, I get that some people will go well, yeah, the Browns, he sucked at the Browns. But you don't get that type of experience in the FCS, let alone the Ohio Valley, very often. And so I think that is a huge leg up. He's not in charge, so he kind of adds that green-eared, greenhorn kind of rookiness of Eddie George, and you add a very big NFL veteran-type coach like Hugh Jackson to kind of be that number 2. I think it's just going to help Eddie kind of be able to just focus more on the energy and have somebody be like, well, this is how you should run a team meeting. This is what we should be looking at. And it didn't work in the NFL, but the OVC is not the NFL. It's far from it. I think Hugh Jackson could do really great. I wouldn't be surprised if he's only there for like 3 years and then maybe he's at like, I don't know, Tennessee Tech or something, right? Like that'd be wild to see. But not only that, like, okay, we got into their coaching. They also inherit 2 All-Americans and 9 all-conference players. This is at Tennessee State. Like, sleeping on that, 2 All-Americans. September 11th, they got the Southern Heritage Classic. You were talking about October 30th, the greatest homecoming on planet Earth. How about September 11th? I don't know what you'll be doing there, but the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis, Tennessee, in the Liberty Bowl. Oh, it's just, Eddie George versus Neon Deion Jackson in Jackson State. I mean, I'm sorry, Coach Sanders.
Hey, Dion, I was just wondering if you could...
hold on. Let's back up a little bit. You don't call Nick Saban Nick. Don't call me Dion now, okay?
I call Nick Saban Nick.
Yeah, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. That's a lie. If you call Nick Nick, you know you get cussed out on the spot. So don't do that to me. Treat me like Nick.
I mean, my man, like that game's going to be crazy too. Can you imagine Eddie George and Deion Sanders on opposite sidelines coaching 2 HBCUs in a really historic kind of rivalry game in the Liberty Bowl, which is a historic football venue? Like, there's your prove it game. Like, you look at the rest of their schedule. Grambling, going to be tough. Like I said, you have game 2 is Jackson State, but I think they'll beat Grambling, so they're going to be rolling in 1-0. Kentucky State should be a win. SEMO, you're at SEMO, could be difficult. SEMO, we're going through some things. At Austin P, going to be difficult, but once again, kind of your prove-it games. Then you get Tennessee Tech, should win. Eastern Illinois, could win. Murray State, going to be difficult, but it's also homecoming late in the year, October 30th. If you have that momentum, once again, that could be helpful to you. Get Austin P again, and then you have the Mississippi State Bulldogs, which also Eddie George on the opposite sideline of Mike Leach. Like, what a fun year to be a Tennessee State fan. Like, you get, I don't know, you just get a lot of, and I understand there's a lot that has to go right for them, right? Like, Jackson State, then Kentucky State, at SEMO, at Austin P, after playing Grambling. Those first 5 games are hard. Kentucky State's the only one you can literally go, they'll win that one. Like, very well could lose to Grambling, Jackson State, SEMO, and Austin P. But that's what this is all about, man. Prove it games. And I think they could prove it with this schedule early. And then, like I said, you prove it there. UT Martin and Murray, like, are you really worried about Murray and UT Martin if you beat Austin P on the road, SEMO on the road, Jackson State? Like, I don't think so as much. Can't sleep on them, but, man, they'll have some momentum.
Yeah, I was going to say, looking at their OVC schedule, they just got to take care of that, because if you're looking at it, like, this might be the most exciting time ever to be a TSU fan since Shannon Sharp's been there. Looking at it, you got the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic against Grambling. That's a cool special game. They got their rivalry game of the Southern Heritage Classic. That's pretty cool. You got homecoming. You got Mississippi State. Like, they're going to have so much to look forward to this year, even if it doesn't go their way.
Tennessee Tech at home. Like, man, what a fun, like, I wish I lived in Nashville. Like,
right?
I would be at like 5 Tennessee State games this year.
Well, I was going to say, like, if they don't fill up Nissan Stadium, I don't know what else you could do. Yeah. Like, you literally have such an exciting lineup. And, if that doesn't throw off the opposing teams coming into an NFL stadium, even just based off of shock and awe factor, I mean, that's got to give them a small edge, if at all.
With an NFL guy on the sideline, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, but cool. That's our Ben and I's kind of our picks for 6 underdogs or dark horses, whatever term you'd like to prefer for this upcoming fall 2021 season. Ben, thank you for tuning in, joining me and everybody else for tuning in. Let the people who are tuning in know like what you're about and how they can find you.
Yeah, so happy to be on your podcast here. This is great for me. I'm used to just doing the writing stuff. I've been a writer at literally been UNC's sports editor and lead sports reporter. Right now at the College Sports Journal, we have some great articles out there. Hope you guys love our our little previews and preseason predictions of whatnot. But yeah, this is great to be on. I'm excited for it. I mean, being a UNC fan with Eddie Mack being our coach after we've been, just awful for so long besides our 6-5 seasons, this is an exciting time to finally get back to football after, I know the pandemic's still going on, but at least we can have it on TV, if not be there.
We have a better plan this year for the pandemic and football. Cool. For everybody out there, like, this has just literally been member of the Facebook page, right? And we communicate because we're big Sky guys, but that's how this happens. So if you guys are out there and you guys have a bit like a video idea or want to be on the show, DM me. My Twitter handle is on the screen at Chris_P_Hammond. Hit me up on the FCS Fans Nation page. That's what this is all about, is getting more of you guys involved in more in-depth topics than we're allowed to cover on the normal podcast. Anyways, before we go, quick prediction. What is UNC's final record this year?
I'd love to tell you, 11-0, but I got to say, I think there's 4 games out there we can snag. The non-conference schedule, it stacks up pretty good. We go to CU. It'll be a nice little money game. Get our name out there again. Hey, we got Ed McCaffrey at coach. We got Max McCaffrey as a receivers coach. We got baby McCaffrey playing quarterback. Like, if this is any time to be a UNC fan, it's this year. I think they take those 2 out of conference games. Besides that, we take NAU because that's been a home. Whoever's at home is winning since 2013. So we're gonna continue that trend, and then there's gonna be one more win in there somewhere. I don't know where, but Dylan will fight.
You guys heard it here first. We'll fight Paul Petrinos. We'll fight McCaffrey. We'll be 11-0 this year. Thank you for tuning in to the FCS, aka the Football Chris Show. Like, sub, and we'll see you guys in the next one.